Steve's hand slammed Beth against the cold bathroom tiles, his smirk dripping arrogance right before the door handle turned. The silence that followed wasn't mercy. It was a countdown. Because on the other side stood her husband, the man every name in Naples feared. And when Matteo Romano stepped inside, even the air forgot how to breathe. If you're hooked in and want to enjoy this story, go ahead and subscribe, and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. It's always amazing to see where everyone's watching. Plus, tomorrow I've got another incredible story lined up, and you definitely don't want to miss it. Alright, back to the story. Is greater than, I said. Clean that lipstick off your collar, sweetheart. We can't have customers thinking you're busy flirting instead of working. The words sliced through the air as Beth Romano's back collided with the sterile white tiles. Her crisp uniform twisted under Steve Gallo's grip, his fingers digging into the fabric just below her shoulder. The sharp scent of bleach mixed with his cologne, too sweet, too strong as his face hovered inches from hers, that familiar smirk spreading wider. Beth didn't scream. Her breath caught somewhere between her ribs and her throat. She'd spent months dodging his comments, his lingering glances, his accidental touches near the kitchen. Tonight, she'd finally pulled away when he brushed against her back during the dinner rush. A simple boundary. That was all. This was his answer. Come on, Beth, he whispered, his other hand rising toward her collar. Don't act like you don't enjoy a little attention. You smile at those businessmen all night. Let go of me. Her voice cracked, hands pushing weakly against his chest. Steve leaned closer, breath hot against her cheek. You think you're different? Special? You're just another waitress who thinks she can embarrass me in front of my staff and walk away clean. His knuckles whitened as he tightened his grip. Rules don't protect girls like you. But what Steve didn't know, what would shatter his world in exactly 43 seconds, was that Beth Romano had never been alone. Not really. 10 feet away, beyond that locked door, a black Maserati had just pulled into the side entrance. The engine purred to silence. The driver's door opened with a weighted click. Matteo Romano stepped onto the pavement in a tailored black suit that moved like shadow. The fabric stretched across shoulders built for violence. Tattoos crept up his neck, dark vines of loyalty, power, and blood-earned respect. His cufflinks caught the streetlight as he adjusted them, a habit before entering any room. His face held no expression, just the cold calculation of a man who'd built an empire on knowing exactly when to smile and when to erase someone from existence. He'd come home early from Naples. No warning, no guards, no entourage. Just a husband who missed his wife and wanted to surprise her with dinner at her restaurant. Something normal, something tender. He walked through the staff entrance, and the world shifted. The hostess froze mid-sentence. The line cooks glanced up, then immediately back down. Everyone who worked there knew that energy, the kind that made your instincts scream danger even when nothing violent had happened yet. Matteo approached the hostess stand, his voice quiet, almost gentle. Where's Beth? The young hostess swallowed. She's in the back, the restroom, I think. Her eyes darted nervously. Steve. Mr. Gallo went after her a minute ago. Matteo's expression didn't change. Not a flicker, just a single slow nod. Then his polished shoes began moving across the marble floor, each step measured, purposeful, the sound like a countdown. Inside the bathroom, Steve was still talking, still too close, still too confident. No one's coming for you, sweetheart. Not here. Not... The door handle turned. Not fast. Not violent. Just inevitable. The hinges creaked with the weight of something final. The fluorescent light from the hallway spilled across the tiles, and Steve's head snapped toward the sound. Beth gasped, her tear-filled eyes locking onto the silhouette now filling the doorway. Matteo Romano stood perfectly still, his gaze sweeping the scene in one clinical assessment. His wife's back against the wall, tears on her face, another man's hands on her collar. The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. Then Matteo stepped inside and closed the door behind him with a soft click that sounded like a coffin sealing shut. His voice cut through the room, quiet, almost conversational, but carrying the weight of a death sentence. That's my wife you're touching. If your heart's already racing, it means you know how danger hides behind a smile. Subscribe to see what happens next. 3 months earlier, Beth Romano had learned early in life that some men mistake kindness for weakness. Her mother taught her that. Her first job taught her that. And Steve Gallo was teaching her that lesson all over again. Beth, sweetheart, you missed a spot on table 7. His voice was honey smooth as he leaned against the bar, watching her wipe down the marble surface. His eyes traveled slowly, too slowly down her uniform. You know I only push you because you're my best server, right? She nodded without looking up. I'll get it. That's my girl. His hand brushed her lower back as he passed. Always so professional. The touch lasted 2 seconds too long. Beth's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. She needed this job. The tips at La Trattoria di Milano were the best in the city, and the rent on her small apartment didn't pay itself. Speaking up meant risking everything. So she smiled, she nodded, she stayed silent. Steve Gallo was a master of his craft, not cooking, not management, but manipulation. To the customers, he was charm personified. He remembered birthdays, sent complimentary desserts, laughed at bad jokes. The owner loved him. The staff feared him. Behind closed doors, he was something else entirely. Did you see the way Beth looked at me yesterday? He'd joke with the line cooks, loud enough for her to hear. I think she's got a crush. The men would laugh nervously. Beth would scrub dishes harder, her knuckles white against the steel sink. Other waitresses had come before her. Maria, who'd worked the morning shift, quit after 2 months with no explanation. Jessica transferred to another location, refusing to say why. When Beth asked Lucia, her only real friend at the restaurant, what happened to them, Lucia's face went pale. Just be careful around Steve, she whispered. Don't ever be alone with him. But careful only worked for so long. The comments became more frequent. You'd make more tips if you smiled more, Beth. Men, like a warm personality. His hand on her shoulder during shift meetings, fingers kneading just a little too firm. You're tense. You should let me help you relax sometime. Beth started arriving exactly on time instead of early. She took her breaks in the storage room instead of the break area. She wore her wedding ring on a chain under her uniform, hoping the lack of visible jewelry would make her less interesting to him. It didn't work. One evening, during the dinner rush, Steve cornered her near the kitchen. The space was tight, just wide enough for one person. He stepped in anyway, his chest nearly touching hers. You've been avoiding me, he said softly, blocking her exit. Did I do something wrong? Her heart hammered. I'm just busy, Steve. The customers can wait. His smile was practiced, perfect. You know, Beth, I could make things really easy for you here. Better shifts, better sections, better tips. His finger traced the edge of her apron. Or I could make things difficult. She couldn't breathe. The kitchen noise faded into white static. This wasn't innuendo anymore. This was a threat wrapped in a smile. I need to get back to my tables, she managed, ducking under his arm and escaping into the dining room. That night, she came home shaking. Matteo was still in Naples, handling business she never asked about. Their penthouse felt too empty, too quiet. She sat on the edge of their bed, staring at her phone, wanting to call him but knowing she wouldn't. What would I even say? That my manager looks at me wrong? That he makes comments? Matteo would burn the restaurant down. I can handle this. I have to handle this. But 3 days later, during closing shift, Steve brushed past her near the wine storage. His hand slid deliberately across her back, lower than before. Beth spun around, her voice cracking. Don't touch me again. The restaurant went silent. Every server, every cook, every busboy stopped moving. Steve's smile froze. His eyes turned cold. My office. Now. Beth's stomach dropped. She'd just crossed a line she couldn't uncross. And Steve Gallo always made people pay for embarrassing him. Beth's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She gripped her coffee cup tighter, knuckles bone white, hoping Lucia wouldn't notice. The break room was empty except for them, a rare pocket of peace before the lunch rush. But peace was the last thing Beth felt. You look like you haven't slept in days, Lucia said, sliding into the chair across from her. Her dark eyes studied Beth's face with the kind of concern that made lying impossible. What happened? Nothing. I'm fine. Beth's voice came out flat, rehearsed. She'd been practicing that line all morning. Bullshit. Lucia leaned forward, lowering her voice. You've been jumpy all week. You flinch every time the kitchen door opens. And yesterday, when Steve walked past you, I swear you stopped breathing. Beth stared into her coffee, watching the steam curl upward like ghosts. Tell her. Just tell her. But the words stuck in her throat, heavy and immovable. It's Steve, isn't it? Lucia whispered. The cup trembled in Beth's hands. That was answer enough. Lucia's jaw tightened. What did he do? It's not. He didn't. Beth's voice cracked. She set the cup down before she dropped it. He just says things, touches my back, stands too close. It's stupid. I'm overreacting. You're not. Lucia's hand covered hers, warm and steady. Maria used to say the same thing. And Jessica. They both said it was nothing until it was something. Beth's head snapped up. What do you mean? Lucia glanced toward the door, making sure they were alone. Maria quit 2 years ago. Never gave a reason. Just stopped showing up after a closing shift where Steve made her stay late to reorganize the wine cellar. When I called her, she wouldn't talk about it. Just cried and told me to be careful. The air felt thinner suddenly. And Jessica? Transferred to the downtown location 6 months ago. But before she left, I saw her coming out of the storage room with Steve. Her shirt was untucked, her eyes were red, and when I asked if she was okay, she just said, "Don't ever be alone with him." Lucia's voice dropped to barely a whisper. 3 weeks later, she was gone. Beth's stomach turned to ice. Why didn't anyone report him? Report him to who? The owner? Steve's his golden boy. He brings in money, keeps customers happy, runs this place like a machine. Lucia's eyes glistened with frustrated tears. Nobody believes the girls who speak up. They just think we're dramatic or jealous or trying to get attention. So we just let him keep doing it? Beth's voice rose, anger cutting through the fear. We just let him corner the next girl and the next one after that? What choice do we have? Lucia shot back. You think I haven't thought about it? I need this job, Beth. My mom's medical bills don't pay themselves. Jessica needed hers too. Maria had student loans. We're all just trying to survive, and men like Steve know that. They know we won't risk everything to stop them. The break room door swung open. Both women jumped. Steve stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Break's over, ladies. Beth, you're on Section 3 today. Lucia, I need you in the back to help unpack the delivery. I usually work the floor on Fridays, Lucia said carefully. Not today. Steve's smile was pleasant, professional, and somehow menacing all at once. We're switching things up. He left without waiting for a response. Lucia's hand squeezed Beth's one more time. Be careful, don't let him catch you alone. Beth nodded, but as she stood and smoothed her uniform, a different feeling began to coil in her chest. Not just fear anymore, something sharper, something that tasted like fury. That evening, during the dinner rush, Steve brushed past her near the kitchen. His hand landed on her lower back, fingers spreading possessively as he leaned close to her ear. Section 3's doing well tonight. See what happens when you cooperate? Beth's entire body went rigid. She jerked away, spinning to face him, her voice low but cutting. I said, don't touch me. The kitchen went silent. Every server, every cook, every busboy froze mid-motion. Steve's smile vanished. His eyes turned to stone. You just made a mistake, Beth. If this part made your stomach twist, you already know why stories like this matter. Don't just watch, subscribe, so silence like Beth's never wins again. The restaurant felt different after closing. The laughter and clinking glasses were gone, replaced by the hum of industrial refrigerators and the distant clatter of dishes being stacked. Beth moved through her closing duties on autopilot, wiping down tables, refilling salt shakers, counting her tips with hands that still trembled from the evening's confrontation. One by one, the other staff filtered out. Lucia squeezed her arm on the way past. Want me to wait? Beth shook her head. I'm almost done. Go home. Text me when you get to your car. Lucia insisted, her eyes carrying a warning Beth pretended not to understand. I will. But she wouldn't make it to her car. The front door chimed as the last server left. The kitchen had gone quiet 10 minutes ago, the cooks escaping the moment their stations were clean. Beth was alone now, or thought she was finishing the last section near the bar. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mateo. Landing in 2 hours. Miss you, amore mio. Her chest tightened with relief. He was coming home early. She typed back quickly. Miss you more. Can't wait to. Working late, I see. Beth's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering against the bar. Steve emerged from the hallway leading to his office. Jacket off, sleeves rolled up, that calculated smile playing at his lips. But his eyes were different now. Colder, sharper. Everyone else left already, Beth said, forcing her voice steady. I was just finishing up. I know. He moved closer, each step deliberate. I sent them home. Thought we should talk. About your little outburst earlier. Beth's pulse hammered in her throat. I didn't mean to. Embarrass me, disrespect me, make me look weak in front of my staff. His voice was soft, almost gentle, which made it worse somehow. Because that's what you did, Beth. You made me look like I can't control my own employees. I just asked you not to touch me. That's not disrespect, that's... A boundary? Steve laughed, the sound hollow. You don't get boundaries here, sweetheart. Not with me. Not when I'm the one who decides if you keep this job or end up like Maria and Jessica, gone, broke, and blacklisted from every decent restaurant in the city. The threat hung in the air between them, sharp as broken glass. Beth grabbed her purse from behind the bar, clutching it like a shield. I'm going home. She moved toward the front door, but Steve sidestepped, blocking her path. We're not done talking. Yes, we are. Her voice shook, but she held her ground. Move, Steve. His smile vanished entirely. Or what? You'll call someone? Your husband? He laughed again, bitter and mocking. What's he gonna do? Come yell at me? File a complaint? I've been doing this for years, Beth. Nobody ever believes girls like you. Beth's blood turned to ice. Girls like you. Not the first. Not even close. She tried to step around him, but his hand shot out, gripping her wrist. The bathroom. Now. We're going to have a conversation about respect, and you're going to listen. Let go. He pulled her toward the back hallway, his grip bruising. Beth stumbled, her shoulder hitting the wall as he dragged her past the kitchen, past the storage room, toward the employee restroom at the end of the corridor. Stop, please. He shoved the door open, pushing her inside. The fluorescent light flickered overhead, casting harsh shadows across the white tiles. The room smelled like bleach and something sour underneath. Beth's back hit the wall as Steve stepped inside behind her. The lock clicked. That sound, that small, metallic click, echoed louder than it should have. Final, trapping. Now, Steve said, his voice dropping to something dangerous, something she'd never heard before. Let's talk about what happens to waitresses who don't know their place. Beth's throat closed, her hands pressed against the cold tiles behind her, searching for something, anything. But there was only wall, only him. Only the locked door between her and escape. Steve moved closer, his hand reaching for her collar. No one's coming to save you, sweetheart. But outside, 10 feet away, a black Maserati pulled into the parking lot, and Matteo Romano had just stepped out. The leather of Matteo's driving gloves creaked as he closed the car door. The night air was cool against his face, carrying the faint scent of garlic and wine from the restaurant's kitchen vents. He'd driven straight from the airport, skipping his usual security detail, wanting just one normal evening with his wife. Normal. The word felt foreign in his world. He adjusted his cufflinks platinum, engraved with his family crest, and rolled his shoulders beneath the tailored black suit. 3 weeks in, Naples had been productive but exhausting. Deals made, territories secured, old debts collected, but none of it mattered as much as seeing Beth smile when he walked through that door. The restaurant's main entrance was locked, lights dimmed for closing. Matteo walked around to the staff entrance, the one Beth had shown him months ago when she'd sneak him leftover tiramisu after late shifts. Back when her biggest worry was whether the panna cotta would set properly, before she'd started having nightmares. She thought he didn't notice. The way she'd wake at 3 a.m., breathing too fast. The way she'd flinch when he touched her shoulder without warning. The way she'd started wearing long sleeves even in summer, hiding the small bruises on her wrists she claimed were from carrying heavy trays. Matteo had built an empire on reading people, on seeing the lies beneath the surface. He knew something was wrong. He'd been waiting for her to tell him. He was done waiting. The staff entrance opened silently. He'd taught himself to move quietly years ago, a skill that had saved his life more than once. The back hallway was dimly lit, empty, except for stacked chairs and the lingering smell of bleach. Too quiet. His instincts, honed by years of survival, whispered danger before his mind could process why. The kind of silence that came before violence. Before someone screamed. He moved forward, boots silent against the tile floor. Through the kitchen, past the stainless steel prep stations, toward the dining area where Beth should have been finishing her closing duties. Empty. Her purse sat on the bar, phone face down beside it. Screen still lit. She'd been here seconds ago. Matteo's jaw tightened. His hand moved instinctively to his hip. No weapon tonight. Just a husband surprising his wife, but his body knew the motion anyway. Old habits. Excuse me. A young hostess emerged from the coat room, freezing when she saw him. Her eyes went wide, recognition and fear flashing across her face in equal measure. Everyone in this part of the city knew Matteo Romano's face. Most had the sense to look away. Where's Beth? His voice was quiet, controlled. The tone he used when giving someone one chance to tell the truth. The hostess swallowed hard. She was just here, finishing her section. Everyone else left already. Where is Beth? Each word dropped like a stone. I don't know. Maybe the restroom? In the back?" Her voice cracked. Mr. Gallo was still here too. I think he wanted to talk to her about something. Matteo's expression didn't change. Not a flicker. But something shifted in the air around him. Something the hostess felt in her bones. She took an involuntary step backward. "Gallo," he repeated, almost to himself. "Her manager." The hostess nodded frantically. He went toward the back right after everyone left. Maybe 5 minutes ago. 5 minutes. In Matteo's world, 5 minutes was a lifetime. 5 minutes was how long it took to disappear someone. 5 minutes was how long it took to ruin a life. His feet were moving before he made the conscious decision. Long strides carrying him toward the back hallway. Each step measured, purposeful. The sound echoed off the walls like a countdown. He passed the kitchen, the storage room, the employee lockers. Then he heard it. Muffled, desperate. "Let go of me." Beth's voice, cracking with fear. Matteo stopped in front of the restroom door. His hand closed around the handle, feeling the lock resistance. Inside, a male voice, low and threatening. "No one's coming to save you, sweetheart." Matteo's eyes closed for one breath. 2. When they opened, they were empty of everything except purpose. He turned the handle and pushed. The door opened slowly, hinges creaking like the gates of hell swinging wide. Time fractured. Steve's head snapped toward the door, his hand still gripping Beth's collar. His confident smirk flickered, confusion replacing the predatory gleam in his eyes. Beth gasped, her tear-filled gaze locking onto the silhouette filling the doorway. Relief and terror crashed through her in equal waves. Matteo. For 3 heartbeats, nobody moved, nobody breathed. Matteo stood perfectly framed in the threshold, backlit by the hallway's fluorescent glow. His tailored suit absorbed the light like a black hole, making him seem larger than he was, though at 6'3", he didn't need the help. The tattoos crawling up his neck seemed to writhe in the shadows, ancient symbols of violence and loyalty that marked him as something far more dangerous than any restaurant manager could comprehend. His face was a mask of absolute calm, no rage, no shock, just the cold, clinical assessment of a man who'd walked into similar scenes 100 times before, though never with his wife pressed against the wall. "You have 5 seconds." Matteo's voice was barely above a whisper, yet it filled the entire room like thunder rolling across a distant horizon. Steve's hand fell away from Beth's collar as if she'd suddenly caught fire. "What? Who the hell?" 5. Matteo stepped inside, his movements fluid and deliberate. The door swung shut behind him with a soft click that sounded like a coffin lid closing. "Look, man, this is a private conversation." Steve's voice cracked, his bravado crumbling like wet paper. 4. Matteo's eyes never left Steve's hands. "To move them, before I break them." Steve stumbled backward, nearly tripping over his own feet, hands flying up in surrender. "Jesus, okay, I wasn't, we were just talking." 3. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Beth pressed herself against the wall, her body trembling, watching her husband transform into something she'd only glimpsed in nightmares. This was the man people whispered about in dark corners. The man whose name made grown men go pale. "She's just being dramatic." Steve's back hit the paper towel dispenser. "I'm her manager. I have a right to." 2. Matteo took another step forward. The light caught the ink on his neck, a serpent coiled around a dagger, its fangs bared. His hands hung loose at his sides, relaxed, which somehow made them more terrifying. These were hands that had ended lives. Hands that knew exactly how much pressure it took to snap bone. Steve's face drained of all color. His legs shook visibly, expensive shoes squeaking against the tiles as he tried to make himself smaller. "Please, I didn't know, I swear I didn't." "Didn't know what?" Matteo's head tilted slightly, curiosity flickering across his features. That she belonged to someone? That someone would care? He moved closer, closing the distance to less than a foot, or didn't know that someone was me. 1. The word hung in the air like an executioner's blade. Steve's knees buckled. "I'm sorry, God, I'm so sorry, please." Matteo's hand shot out, not to strike, but to grip the collar of Steve's shirt with the same casual violence Steve had used on Beth. He lifted the smaller man slightly, forcing him onto his toes. "You put your hands on my wife," Matteo said softly, each word enunciated with surgical precision. "You cornered her, locked the door, made her afraid in a place she should have been safe." His other hand came up, fingers tracing the edge of Steve's collar almost gently. "Do you understand what that means?" Steve nodded frantically, tears streaming down his face. Yes, I'm sorry." "It means," Matteo continued, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more weight than any shout. That you have exactly one chance to walk out of this room alive. One chance to disappear from this city, this job, this life. His grip tightened. Do you understand? Yes, yes. I'll leave tonight, I swear. Mateo released him suddenly. Steve collapsed against the wall, gasping. You have until sunrise. Mateo stepped back, his eyes finally moving to Beth. His expression softened imperceptibly. After that, I stopped being reasonable. Steve scrambled for the door, hands shaking so badly he could barely turn the handle. Then he was gone. Running, and Beth finally let herself breathe. The door clicked shut behind Steve's fleeing footsteps, leaving only the hum of the fluorescent light and the sound of Beth's ragged breathing. For a moment, neither of them moved. The white tiles seemed to close in, the walls holding the memory of violence that almost was. Mateo turned slowly, his shoulders dropping slightly as the predator receded and the man emerged. His eyes, cold and empty just seconds ago now, held something raw and vulnerable as they traced over Beth's face, cataloging every tear track, every tremor, every sign of fear. Are you hurt? His voice was barely audible, stripped of all the menace it had carried moments before. Beth shook her head, but her body betrayed her. Her knees buckled, and Mateo moved faster than she'd ever seen him move, catching her before she hit the ground. His arms wrapped around her, gentle, careful, as if she were made of glass, and pulled her against his chest. I've got you, he murmured into her hair. You're safe, I've got you. The dam broke. Beth's hands clutched at his suit jacket, fingers twisting in the expensive fabric as sobs tore through her chest. 3 months of swallowed fear, silent endurance, and careful pretending came pouring out in gasping, ugly cries that echoed off the bathroom tiles. Mateo said nothing. He just held her, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other wrapped firmly around her waist, anchoring her to something solid while her world fell apart. His jaw was tight, a muscle twitching beneath his tattooed skin, but his touch remained impossibly gentle. I couldn't, Beth choked out between sobs. I couldn't breathe, he wouldn't I tried to. Shh, you don't have to explain. His lips pressed against her temple, and she felt his chest rise and fall with a deep, controlled breath. Not now. Not ever, if you don't want to. They stood like that for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Beth's tears soaked through his shirt, leaving dark patches on the crisp white fabric. She could feel his heartbeat steady, strong, alive, and slowly, her own began to match its rhythm. When her breathing finally steadied, Mateo pulled back just enough to look at her. His thumb traced her cheekbone, wiping away the tears with a tenderness that seemed impossible from hands she'd just watched threaten violence. Come on, he said softly. Let's get you out of here. He shrugged off his suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders. It smelled like him, sandalwood and leather and something darker, something that reminded her of smoke and secrets. The weight of it felt like armor. They walked through the empty restaurant together, Mateo's arm around her waist, supporting most of her weight. Her legs felt like water, her mind still trying to catch up with what had happened. The dining room that had been her workplace for 18 months looked different now. Contaminated, ruined. Beth's purse still sat on the bar where she'd left it a lifetime ago. Mateo grabbed it along with her phone, checking the screen briefly. Lucia texted, 3 times, asking if you're okay. I should. Beth reached for the phone, but her hands were shaking too badly to hold it. I'll text her. Mateo typed quickly with one hand, the other still holding Beth steady. Told her you're with me. You're safe. You'll call tomorrow. He pocketed the phone. Right now we're going home. The night air hit Beth's face like a slap when they stepped outside. She gulped it down, trying to wash away the memory of Steve's cologne, the smell of bleach, the feeling of being trapped. The parking lot was nearly empty, just Mateo's Maserati gleaming under the streetlights like a black pearl. He opened the passenger door, helping her inside with the kind of careful attention usually reserved for the wounded. Maybe that's what she was. The drive home was silent. Mateo's hand found hers in the darkness, fingers interlacing, thumb rubbing small circles on her palm. Beth watched the city lights blur past the window, her mind replaying the evening in fractured pieces. Steve's hand on her collar, the locked door. Mateo's voice. You have 5 seconds. How did you know? She finally whispered. You weren't supposed to be back until tomorrow. I finished early. Wanted to surprise you. His jaw tightened. The hostess told me you were in the back. With him. A pause, heavy with unspoken things. I heard you through the door. Beth's eyes closed. I should have told you. About him. About what he'd been doing. Why didn't you? There was no accusation in his voice, just quiet pain. Because I knew what you'd do. She turned to look at him, at his profile illuminated by passing streetlights, and I thought I could handle it. I thought if I just kept my head down, stayed professional, he'd eventually lose interest. A bitter laugh escaped her. I was so stupid. You weren't stupid. Mateo's voice went hard. He was a predator. They don't lose interest. They just get bolder. His hand tightened on hers. How long, Beth? How long has this been happening? 3 months. Since right after you left for that meeting in Rome. Mateo's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. He pulled the car over suddenly, tires crunching on gravel, and turned to face her fully. 3 months. You've been dealing with this for 3 months, and you didn't tell me. I didn't want you to... To what? Protect you? To stop some piece of shit from hurting my wife? His voice cracked slightly, the control slipping. Beth, I would burn that entire restaurant to the ground for you. I would erase him from existence. Do you understand that? That's exactly why I didn't tell you. Beth's voice rose, matching his intensity. Because I didn't want to be the reason someone died. Because I didn't want our marriage to be about violence and fear and you going to prison because my manager couldn't keep his hands to himself. The words hung between them, raw and honest and painful. Mateo's eyes searched her face in the darkness. Then, slowly, he cupped her cheek. You think I would go to prison? Despite everything, Beth almost smiled. Mateo. Fair point. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead against hers. But Beth, you're not protecting me by suffering in silence. You're just hurting us both. Her eyes filled again. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Not for this. Never for this. He pulled back slightly. But we're going to talk about this. Really talk. About what happened tonight and what's been happening. About what comes next. What does come next? Mateo's expression hardened, the predator flickering behind his eyes once more. Steve Gallo disappears. The restaurant gets investigated. And you never have to see that place again. I can't just quit. You can. You will. His tone left no room for argument. I know you value your independence, and I love that about you. But that job, that place where you were hunted, you're done there, Beth. We'll figure out the rest. Beth wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle her own life, make her own decisions. But the truth was, she couldn't imagine walking back through those doors. Couldn't imagine serving drinks and forcing smiles in a place that now felt like a crime scene. Okay, she whispered. Mateo studied her for a long moment, then nodded. He pulled back onto the road, heading toward their penthouse in the hills. The city spread out below them, a glittering carpet of lights and lives and secrets. When they finally pulled into their private garage, Beth didn't move immediately. She sat in the leather seat, Mateo's jacket still wrapped around her shoulders, staring at nothing. I thought he was going to... She couldn't finish the sentence. I know. Mateo's voice was quiet, deadly, but he didn't. And he never will. Not to you, not to anyone else. He turned off the engine, the sudden silence loud in the enclosed space. I promise you that. Beth looked at him, really looked at him. At the man who'd built an empire on fear and violence, who'd made grown men disappear for far less than what Steve had done. The man who now sat beside her with infinite patience, waiting for her to be ready to move. I believe you, she said finally. They went inside together, Mateo's arm around her shoulders, her steps slow but steady. The penthouse felt like sanctuary familiar furniture. Soft lighting, the faint scent of the lavender candles Beth kept on the windowsill. Shower, Mateo said gently. I'll make tea. Beth nodded, grateful he understood she needed to wash away the feeling of Steve's hands, the memory of that bathroom. She stood under the scalding water until her skin turned pink, scrubbing until she felt clean again. When she emerged, wrapped in Mateo's oversized robe, he was waiting in the living room with chamomile tea and the kind of quiet presence that asked for nothing. They sat together on the couch, Beth curled into his side, both of them staring out at the city lights. The silence wasn't empty, it was full of things they'd say eventually, decisions they'd make together, consequences that would ripple outward from this night. But for now, they just sat. Just breathed. Just existed in the aftermath of a moment that had changed everything. Thank you, Beth whispered into the darkness. For coming when you did. Mateo's arm tightened around her. Always, he replied. I'll always come for you. And in that moment, Beth believed him. The penthouse windows rattled under a midnight wind. city lights flickering like distant gunfire. Beth sat on the edge of the velvet couch, knees drawn to her chest, Mateo's untouched chamomile cooling beside her. He hadn't moved from the doorway since they'd come in, arms folded, shoulders rigid, watching her the way a wolf watches a wounded fawn it refuses to leave. "I can make him vanish," he said finally, voice low, almost tender. "One call. Naples, Marseille, the bottom of the bay. You pick." Beth's laugh cracked like thin ice. "And then what? I wake up every morning wondering which of your enemies will send me a finger in the mail?" She pressed her palms to her eyes until sparks bloomed. "I'm not a debt to be settled, Mateo. I'm your wife." He flinched, actually flinched at the word wife. In his world, that title was armor, not argument. No one had ever turned it against him. She stood, legs unsteady but spine straight. "If you erase him, he wins. He gets to be the monster in my nightmares forever. I need him small, Mateo. I need him human and afraid in a courtroom, not a ghost in my head." The silence stretched, thick as smoke. Mateo's knuckles whitened against his biceps. He had ended men for less than a raised voice. Yet here was Beth 5'6" in his oversized robe drawing a line he couldn't cross. "HR opens at 9. She continued, voice trembling but gaining speed. "I'll file the report, then the labor board. Lucia will back me. So will Maria if I can find her." She met his gaze, fierce and wet-eyed. "I'm doing this my way. Promise me you'll stay out of it." His jaw worked. "You're asking me to watch you bleed in public. I'm asking you to trust that I won't." Another gust rattled the glass. Mateo crossed the room in 3 strides, cupping her face with hands that could crush bone. "You think I don't see the storm in you?" His thumbs brushed her cheekbones. "I married it. His voice fractured. "I just never thought it would aim at me." Beth leaned into his touch, eyes closing. "Then let it rage somewhere else." He exhaled, a sound like surrender. "Fine. But I fund the lawyer. Best in the city. No arguments. Deal." She managed a watery smile. "But you sit in the back row. No glaring. No cufflink adjustments that look like death threats." A reluctant huff escaped him, almost a laugh. "You're cruel, Mrs. Romano." The next morning, Beth walked into La Trattoria di Milano, wearing the same uniform she'd bled fear into for months. The new day shift manager, a nervous woman named Carla, froze at the sight of her. Word had spread overnight. Steve hadn't shown up. His office was locked, his nameplate already gone. Beth laid the HR complaint on Carla's desk like a gauntlet. Sexual harassment, assault, false imprisonment. "I have witnesses." Her voice didn't shake once. Carla's hands trembled as she took the papers. We'll need to investigate. Do it fast." Beth's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Before the labor board does it for you." By noon, the story cracked open like a fault line. A junior reporter from Il Mattino got a tip, anonymous, untraceable. Mateo's doing, though he'd never admit it. Within hours, number La Trattoria Scandalo trended citywide. Former waitresses crawled out of silence. Maria in Turin, Jessica in Milan, 3 others whose names Beth had never known. Each carried the same bruises under different uniforms. Mateo kept his promise. He sat in the back of every meeting, a silent shadow in bespoke wool, eyes unreadable. When Beth's voice cracked recounting the locked door, he didn't move, didn't clench a fist, didn't reach for the burner phone in his pocket. But the temperature in the room dropped anyway. That night, back in the penthouse, Beth stood at the kitchen island slicing lemons with mechanical precision. Mateo watched from the doorway, tie loosened, sleeves rolled to reveal the serpent tattoo that had once made a Camorra boss piss himself. "You were magnificent today," he said quietly. "I threw up in the courthouse bathroom. Still magnificent." She set the knife down, hands shaking now that adrenaline had ebbed. They offered a settlement. 6 figures. NDA. Mateo's eyebrow arched. "You laughed in their face?" "I told them to shove it." She turned, leaning against the counter. "I want his license revoked. I want every restaurant in this chain audited. I want the owner to look me in the eye and apologize on television." He crossed to her, slow, reverent. "And if they refuse, then we leak the security footage." Her smile was feral. "The one from the hallway camera. The one HR forgot existed until my lawyer asked nicely." Mateo's eyes darkened with something like pride. "Remind me never to play chess with you." Beth stepped into his arms, pressing her face to his chest. His heartbeat was steady, grounding. "I'm still scared," she whispered. "I know." He kissed the top of her head. But fear isn't the opposite of courage, amore. It's the fuel. Outside, thunder rolled over the bay, lightning stitching the sky. Inside, Beth Romano, waitress, survivor. Storm let herself be held by the only man who'd ever seen her fury and called it beautiful. Tomorrow, the fight continued. Tonight, she slept without nightmares for the first time in 3 months, because the monster wasn't in the dark anymore. He was in the light, shrinking, exposed, and very, very afraid. The courthouse steps were slick with October rain, microphones bristling like bayonets. Beth Romano stood at the podium in a charcoal trench coat, hair pulled back severe, wedding ring glinting under flashbulbs. No makeup, no smile. Just the kind of calm that comes after a war. "My name is Beth Romano," she began, voice steady enough to cut glass. "For 3 months, I served tables while my manager hunted me. Tonight, I'm serving notice." Cameras clicked. Reporters leaned forward. Behind her, Lucia stood shoulder to shoulder with Maria, flown in from Turin, and Jessica, who'd taken a night train from Milan. 3 women in black, 3 stories in their eyes. Beth didn't read from notes. She didn't need to. I was told to smile more, to wear tighter uniforms, to laugh at jokes that made my skin crawl. When I said stop, I was dragged into a bathroom and locked inside. Her breath hitched just once, but she didn't look away. I thought I was alone. I wasn't. She stepped aside. Lucia took the mic. "He cornered me in the wine cellar," she said, voice raw. "Told me my mother's hospital bills would disappear if I was nice. I quit the next day. I thought that was the end." Maria spoke next, quieter. "He said no one would believe a student with loans. He was right until now." Jessica's turn. "He transferred me after I threatened to scream. Said it was a promotion. It was exile." 4 voices, 4 uniforms, 1 predator. The owner, silver-haired, sweating under an umbrella, tried to interrupt. "These are allegations." "Allegations?" Beth's laugh was sharp, joyless. "We have texts, time-stamped. We have hallway footage. We have the lock on that bathroom door that still bears his fingerprints." She turned to the cameras. "And we have each other." By nightfall, number Me Too Trattoria was global. Waitresses in Florence, baristas in Rome, hotel maids in Palermo. Messages flooded Beth's inbox. "He touched me too. He threatened my visa. He said my kids would suffer." Each story a brick in a wall Steve Gallo could never climb. Matteo watched from the penthouse, television muted, whiskey untouched. His phone buzzed, capos offering solutions, rivals testing weakness. He silenced every call. This wasn't his war anymore. Beth came home after midnight, soaked, shoes ruined, eyes blazing. She dropped a thick envelope on the counter. "Labor board ruling," she said. "Chain-wide audit. Steve's license revoked. Owner resigns by Monday or faces criminal charges." She exhaled, trembling. "It's done." Matteo pulled her against him, trench coat dripping on marble. "You're shaking." "I'm furious," she corrected. "They offered me a talk show, a book deal, a foundation." She laughed, incredulous. "They want the brand of Beth Romano." He tilted her chin up. "And what do you want?" She looked out at the city, rain streaking the windows like tears she refused to shed. "I want every woman who wrote to me to know her name matters more than his." The next morning, she launched the fund herself. No corporate sponsors, no NDAs. Matteo wired the first $1 million anonymously. Within a week, it was 10. Lawyers volunteered. Therapists offered pro bono hours. A hotline went live at 3 a.m. because survivors don't keep business hours. Beth spoke at shelters, union halls, even a high school assembly where a 16-year-old asked, "What if no one believes me?" She knelt to the girl's level. "Then you find the ones who will. And you never stop looking." Paparazzi camped outside the penthouse. Matteo's security rerouted them through alleys that smelled of garbage and regret. One photographer got too close, snapped Beth mid-stride, hair wild, eyes fierce. The photo went viral. The woman who broke the smirk. Steve Gallo surfaced in a grainy mugshot, arrested in Genoa, trying to board a ferry with a fake passport. Beth stared at the image for a long time, then closed the laptop. "I thought I'd feel more," she told Matteo that night, curled on the couch in his old Napoli jersey. "Relief. Victory. Something." He traced the serpent tattoo on her wrist. She'd gotten it weeks ago, small, defiant. "What do you feel?" "Responsible." She met his eyes. "For every girl who'll walk into a break room tomorrow and know she's not prey." Matteo kissed her knuckles, slow, reverent. That's not responsibility, amore. That's legacy. Outside, the city kept moving, taxis honking, neon flickering, lives intersecting in the dark. Inside, Beth Romano closed her eyes and, for the first time, didn't see the bathroom door. She saw doors opening. The rain started the moment they stepped out of the taxi, soft at first, then heavier, drumming on the awning of the newly renamed Trattoria Beth. 6 months had passed since the courthouse steps, since the headlines, since the night everything broke open and somehow, against all odds, began to heal. The old La Trattoria di Milano was gone. Not burned down, not vanished in a Mafia-style fire, but gone all. Stripped to the studs, repainted in warm terracotta and sage, the marble bar replaced with reclaimed oak, the crystal chandeliers swapped for Edison bulbs, strung like fireflies. The name above the door now glowed in looping gold script. Trattoria Beth. No possessive, no title, just her name. A declaration. Beth stood under the awning in a simple black dress, hair loose, wedding ring catching the streetlight. She hadn't worn the uniform in months, but tonight she'd put on the apron again one last time. Not to serve, to remember. Matteo stood beside her, umbrella in hand, but he didn't open it. He never did when she asked him not to. His black coat was unbuttoned, collar up, the serpent tattoo peeking above his shirt like a silent guardian. He hadn't brought security. No drivers, no shadows in the alley. Just them, like the first night he walked in pretending to be a regular, ordering the risotto and watching her move between tables like she owned the room. Because she did. "You ready?" he asked, voice low, almost reverent. Beth exhaled, watching her breath fog in the cool air. "I've been ready since the night you gave him 5 seconds. He smiled, small, private, the kind only she ever saw. "Then let's go home." But this was home now. Not the penthouse in the hills. Not the villa in Naples. This restaurant, the one she'd rebuilt from the ashes of her trauma, was where she breathed easiest. They stepped inside. The staff 12 now. All women, all survivors, froze mid-motion. Lucia, now general manager, dropped a tray of breadsticks. "You're early," she gasped, then laughed, rushing forward to hug Beth so hard her apron strings tangled. "Look at you," Beth murmured, pulling back to study her friend. Lucia's eyes were bright, her smile real. No more flinching when the kitchen door slammed. No more counting tips with trembling fingers. "You kept the corner booth," Matteo said quietly, nodding toward the back. Beth followed his gaze. The same cracked leather seat where she used to hide during breaks, where she'd cried into her apron after Steve's first joke, where Matteo had sat that first night and ordered tiramisu just to watch her smile. Now it held a reserved sign. Hand-painted. Romano table. Always. A young server, 19, shy, clutching a resume, approached hesitantly. "Signora Romano? I heard you hire people who've been through it." Her voice cracked. "My old boss, he grabbed me in the walk-in, said I'd never work again if I told. I believed him." Beth's heart clenched. She knelt slightly, meeting the girl's eyes. "What's your name?" "Clara." "Clara, interviews tomorrow, 9 a.m. Bring nothing but yourself." "And Clara?" She squeezed her shoulder. "You already work here. The rest is just paperwork." The girl's eyes filled. She nodded, unable to speak, and Lucia gently guided her to the back with a promise of tea and tiramisu. Matteo watched the exchange, something raw and proud flickering across his face. "You built a sanctuary," he said. "I built a home," Beth corrected. "There's a difference." They slid into the corner booth. The candle between them flickered, casting gold on Matteo's cheekbones, on the faint scar near his temple, a souvenir from a life he'd never fully leave behind. But tonight, he wasn't the Mafia boss. He was just her husband, the man who'd learned to wait. Lucia appeared with 2 plates. Spaghetti aglio e olio, extra chili, extra garlic, the way Beth had made it for Matteo the night he proposed in their kitchen at 2 a.m., both of them covered in flour and laughter. "On the house," Lucia said with a wink. "Forever and ever and ever." Beth laughed, really laughed, the sound bright and unguarded. "You're going to bankrupt me with free food." "Never," Lucia shot back. "You're the reason any of us eat at all." She left them alone. The kitchen noise faded to a hum. Just the rain on the windows, the clink of forks, the soft jazz from the speakers. "Billie Holiday, I'll be seeing you." Matteo lifted his glass, sparkling water. "No whiskey tonight." To the woman who turned a cage into a kingdom. Beth clinked hers against it. to the man who learned to open the door instead of breaking it. They ate in silence at first, comfortable, familiar. The pasta was perfect. The chili burned just right. When the plates were cleared, Matteo reached into his coat and slid a small velvet box across the table. Beth's breath caught. "We're already married." "Open it anyway." Inside, a new wedding band, platinum, etched with tiny serpents intertwined with olive branches, symbols of danger and peace, violence and growth. On the inner curve, an inscription in his handwriting, "Storm and Shelter." Her eyes filled. "Matteo, I had the old one melted," he said quietly. "The night you filed the report. Figured we'd start fresh." He took her hand, slid the ring on beside the original. "You kept your name. I kept my promise. We both kept each other." Beth stared at their joined hands, then at him. "Do you regret it?" she asked suddenly. "Not letting me watch you bury him in concrete." He laughed low, surprised, the sound rumbling in his chest. "Every damn day. But this." He gestured at the restaurant, the staff laughing in the kitchen, the chalkboard menu, the life humming around them. "This is scarier. You terrify me more than any rival ever could." "Good." She leaned across the table, kissed him slow and deliberate, tasting garlic and redemption and 6 months of nights where she didn't wake up screaming. "Fear keeps us honest." Later, they stepped onto the sidewalk. The rain had softened to a mist, streetlights haloed in gold. Matteo opened the umbrella, but Beth tugged him into the downpour. "Let it," she said, tilting her face to the sky. "I'm not afraid of getting wet anymore." He watched her spin, coat forgotten, hair plastered to her cheeks, laughing like the night they met when she spilled red wine on his shoes and dared him to fire her. He'd been lost then. He was lost now. Utterly, irrevocably hers. A flash went off across the street, paparazzi, always hungry. Matteo's hand twitched toward his coat, old instincts flaring. Beth caught it, laced their fingers tight. "Let them see," she said. "Let them print it." Beth Romano dances in the rain, while her husband holds the umbrella he no longer needs. The photo ran the next morning. Front page of Il Mattino. Caption, "The storm that stayed." Inside Trattoria Beth, the chalkboard changed daily. That night it read, "Is greater than tonight's special. Courage. Served with extra chili. No smile required. Is greater than tip your server. Thank your survivor. Is greater than we are not the story they tried to silence. Is greater than we are the one they'll never forget." And in the corner booth, 2 rings glinted under candlelight, one old, one new, both unbreakable, because the night Steve Gallo thought he'd won, the wrong man walked in, and the right woman made sure the world never forgot her name, Beth Romano. Thanks for sticking with this story till the end. If you enjoyed it, you're going to love the next one. It's packed with unexpected turns and heartfelt moments. Click the image on your screen to keep the journey going, and make sure to hit subscribe for more amazing stories. Drop a comment and rate this story from 1 to 10. I can't wait to see what you think.